Hey everyone, welcome back to HD Reddit Reads. Today's topic is going to be, were you ever that one in a million? If so, what's your story? Let's get into it. I am a 19-year-old male. In August of last year, I was driving with my sister when suddenly her face turned cold. "Gavin, your eyes are yellow," I remember her saying. I quickly pulled down the passenger's mirror, and to my horror, two yellow eyes radiated back at me. Fast forward, I spent a month being sick. The initial diagnosis was hepatitis A. Went back to the doctor and nothing was better. Things were worse, in fact. Was sent to the ER, then to the liver transplant unit at UCSF. By this point, my eyes had turned muddy orange and my pee was the color of a mahogany tree. Anyways, the team of liver doctors at UCSF managed to save my liver. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune hepatitis. Oh, and my eyes are white again. When I was 14 years old, I woke up one day with a heavy stomach cramp. We called the hospital and they told us that I probably had a stomach flu and should go to the doctor the next morning. After one of the worst nights ever, vomiting and sleeping next to the toilet, we went to the doctor. I had a fever of 40 degrees Celsius and was aching a lot. The doctor told me that I had to go to the ER and have it checked out because she thought my appendix was inflamed and causing the pain. We went to the ER and I stayed in the hospital for about 2 weeks, but they couldn't find anything. They treated me with a broad range of antibiotics, and after 2 weeks I was feeling a bit better and they told me to go home and recover. The night back from the hospital, I went to the bed and started hallucinating that I lived in a retirement home and that pirates were coming to steal our food. So I was flailing around trying to fend off pirates when my mother came in and asked what the fuss was all about. I told her what was going on and she looked at me like I had summoned the devil. She took my temperature and she instantly took me to the ER again. I had a fever of 41 degrees Celsius. When we went back to the hospital, I got treated immediately for inflammation, and they did a wide range of tests again. They saw that something in my body was inflamed, but they couldn't find it. I stayed in the hospital for about 2 more weeks when they finally found what was going on. My appendix was inflamed and burst the night I was having the hallucinations, but on the scans they couldn't see my appendix. The doctor told me that if I came in 2 days later, I would have died because of the pus flowing in my body. Apparently there's a 1% chance of all the appendix cases that the appendix is so stretched out that they couldn't see it on the scans, or that the area was so inflamed they didn't see it. So after staying on antibiotics for about 2 more weeks, they finally removed my appendix and all the pain was gone. I stayed in the hospital for over 4 weeks just because my appendix and my bad luck on being that 1%. For my 7th birthday, we went to Disneyland. They just happened to be having a car a day giveaway when we were there. For my 7th birthday, Mickey Mouse gave me a Pontiac Firebird. How I met my wife. I'm from the Netherlands, she is from the US, we met in Israel. It was my first weekend in Israel, decided to go on a pub crawl to meet some women and have fun. As I'm buying the ticket, my now wife walks up to the counter to also buy a ticket. We hit it off the first night, but I'm leaving in 2 days to stay with friends of friends in the middle of the desert for 3 months. 2 days after I leave, I lose my phone. Don't have any way to get back in touch with her. I had little money and could stay/work with people in the desert. But I kept thinking about her, so after a week, I say I'm leaving. Take the next bus, goes 3 times a week at 5 a.m., and then a train to Tel Aviv. I had no idea how to find her, where to stay, and very little money. I email a couple of hotels to find a work/stay agreement. Those jobs are very popular and usually planned months in advance. I get an email back when I arrive in Tel Aviv. I can come in for an interview because they have a spot. This is already ridiculously lucky. Right after the interview and dropping off my belongings, I went back to the first hostel to see if they would give me information. They wouldn't give me anything. Now I'm at a loss. Tel Aviv is a city of more than 500,000 people, and I don't know anyone and have little more than the clothes on my back. Kind of defeated, I start wandering around/exploring the city. After a couple of hours, I get hungry and decide to treat myself to a restaurant. I'm well out of the tourist area and find a place that's almost empty and rather cheap. I sit down, order a drink, and something to eat. As I get my food, I see my now wife walking past the restaurant. She sees me, I see her. I'm literally dumbstruck and just kind of grin and wave. Remember how I lost my phone? She didn't know that and just thought I ignored her. She waves and keeps walking. I throw like 200 shekels, way too much, at the table and sprint after her. Explained, and the rest is history. When I was a kid, I was chilling in the water of the Mediterranean Sea in Turkey. Suddenly, I felt an awful burning sensation on my stomach and legs. I looked like I had been brutally sandpapered and I got a 40 degrees Celsius fever. Turns out I had made contact with a jellyfish, and later found out that it hadn't happened on that beach for 10 years or so. I was just extremely unlucky. Not sure about the odds on this one, but I survived a non-survivable plane crash. I was on an old PO-2, famous for not being very safe and uncrushable, on a tour of the desert in western China when I was like 7. My father's friend who hosted me and piloted the plane didn't survive, but somehow I got out with a concussion and barely passed out for almost a day in the middle of the desert. In the wreckage of the crash, 50 kilometers from a town/airport on the edge of the desert. The people who found me were some tree planters. They plant greens in the desert to protect towns from sandstorms. A lot of people live in these desert towns in China do this. Found me on their way picking up a shipment. And the only reason they looked was because they were making a bet on how fast the egg would cook in the sand and went off the road to test. Edit. First thing first, according to legends, 15 minutes, I never tested it though. So, according to my dad's, the theory that I might have lived was because the plane was mostly made out of fabrics and wood. So when the plane crashed, the front half collapsed and took the majority of the impact. Though I got knocked out, I was probably covered under the wreckage and in the shades. It cooled me off enough to survive for a day or so. I was in 2 separate car crashes in 2 separate cars in less than 45 minutes apart. Edit. I wasn't the driver for either crash. First car was hit from the side, friend came and picked us up, car lost traction and slid off the road and hit a pole. Neither was that bad, just poor timing. I was too. If you count the ambulance, someone pulled out in front of me and I hit them because I had no time to brake. Had some back pain, so an ambulance took me to the hospital. On the way there, someone pulled out in front of them. I slept wrong one night and pinched a nerve in my neck so severely I lost the right side of my body. It just went silent, like it wasn't there for months. I woke up in the worst pain I've ever experienced and couldn't talk, move, or do anything. The ER doctor thought I was having a stroke. My doctor had never seen a case as severe as mine, and it was purely a freak accident. Recovery took months, but I have use of my leg and hand again, with some numbness. Other than the pain and spasms, I'm mostly back to normal. I hate reading stuff like this. If you're not safe lying asleep on a mattress, where are you safe? If it makes you feel better, the chances of it happening are smaller than dying in a fire in your sleep. I have 2 11-centimeter benign tumors growing in my spine, resulting in gradual paralysis from my chest down. They had no idea how the tumors formed. Surgery took 11 hours when they thought it would take 4 because the tumors were so complexly woven throughout my spine. I now have pretty much half a spine and chronic pain, but I take that over losing my life from paralysis and being unable to breathe. The first one I don't know about the exact odds, but I was born on 7/7/77 and weighed 7 pounds and 7 ounces. Sadly though, I clocked in at 6:50 a.m. The other is that around age of 14, I started to notice the outsides of both of my feet starting to get much wider. After a couple of years of buying expensive custom-made shoes, they decided to perform surgery on my feet. Turned out I had extra muscle growth, along with something else I don't recall at the moment. My podiatrist told me he submitted a scholarly article on it. May also have been genetic, as when my dad was 3, he developed an extra toe growing out of each of his big toes. When I was a teenager, I had just started working at the local Sears Auto Center Express Lube Shop, and on day 1 did a quick orientation and my first oil change. The manager walked away when he felt I was good to go and the oil change went well. Fast forward a few days later, my manager asked me to come into his office and he explained that the oil filter I had used had one huge flaw. I didn't know what that was, and it turned out the filter was pressed on backwards into the filter can and it wouldn't allow oil to flow in and it damaged the motor. They had to purchase a new motor for the person and I still kept my job. He said it was a 1 in a million chance that would have happened, and it did on my first oil change. I was struck by lightning while talking on a landline. This was in the early 90s. Lightning struck the telephone line and traveled through the handset to my ear. My parents showed me to the ER. I couldn't talk very well. My brain knew what I wanted to say, but my mouth didn't want to say it. I had a terrible stutter. My doctor told me that I had a dose of good old-fashioned electroshock therapy. My speech was normal the next day, but I got a terrible headache whenever a thunderstorm comes through. Hello, fellow phone lightning friend. Came to share I got struck by a feeler of lightning, according to the fire department, because I was watching a wicked thunderstorm on a cordless home phone. Neighbor's house got struck right by the bedroom window, where I was pressed up against it talking to my friend about the insane frequency of the strikes. I remember dropping the phone, slowly dropping to the floor, and then time feeling really weird. Mom found me laying there when she came to tell me the neighbor's house was on fire. I was conscious, but very out of it. She got me up, helped me outside. Fire department basically said the same thing. Zapped, we'll be fine. Don't be on your phone in the thunderstorm. Also, the fire was small and only burned a hole in the roof / damaged their attic some. Everyone walked away okay. Edit, this was in 2001 or 2002. Thank you for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing. It'll be greatly appreciated. And if you want to visit the original threads, I'll link them in the description. And that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one.